Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, 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 hello. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing good. I have been very busy working on a video, and hopefully it's not a vaporware situation where I keep talking about it and then it never happens. But I've invested in a lot of audio and video equipment recently.
Yeah.
So that'll be here this week, but I can still shoot a whole bunch of like B-roll and other stuff that requires me at a keyboard with this microphone and this phone camera that is pretty good. So I don't need a lot of the equipment until I'm doing stuff with like a lav mic and some more lights as well. But yeah, so I'm really excited. I'm working on a big video for Excalibur. We're gonna showcase a whole bunch of features with some cool demos.
Sweet.
And primarily, we just merged our new lighting system feature. So lighting is now first party in Excalibur for 2D lights. So I spent a lot of time on it. And then one of our contributors came up with the idea. So the initial source code was theirs. So I ported it into the core and I'm really excited. I've also been like really ripping on the browser extension, which I need to submit to the App Store still.
Yep.
So I've been the only user of the new version and it's awesome.
That's cool.
And I've been working on the Excalibur CLI, which does like everything like the Angular CLI, where you can like add actors to a scene. It'll automatically wire them up. You can add scenes to an engine. You can tweak engine parameters. You can read the docs offline.
Well, that's cool.
So you can just search docs from the CLI, which is so cool. I didn't realize how much I will do like just a browser query for my own docs. Or searching the source, but I can just search like the docs. I've got a whole bunch of snippets wired in now too. And so anyway, it's so cool. I've been like going pretty hard on Excalibur the last month or so.
That's awesome.
And I think it's going to be like, the video is going to be cool. I think
that's very exciting.
I've got a few folks that have shared with me their Steam stuff. So I can talk publicly about I think at least 4. I think I have at least 4 right as of this recording. So if you have a Steam game that is built in Excalibur, reach out to me and I'll add it to my list.
Sweet. That's very exciting. We're so excited to have new Excalibur stuff.
Very excited. I'm like electric right now.
That's cool. This past week, I was on vacation, basically. Like we visited my mother-in-law, and she lives in North Dakota. So it was basically 8 hours of driving without seeing any trees. So, we just listened to a lot of audiobooks, basically, and podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a fun week with her, because once we got there, like there was plenty of stuff that we did. We did laser tag, and me and my son both got the top scores at the same score. So he was really good.
Wow.
Yep. So that was a lot of fun. And we went to some breweries, and in the city, they just built a new little alleyway that's like pedestrian only. They had like lawn games and like chess tables and all sorts of, they had like a little splash pad, things like that. So that was really cool.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then we spent some time at the park where she has like a cabin. And so just like, played with fire all day, getting the fire going, and spent some time in the camper and things like that. So yeah, it was cool. The grilling. Made some burgers and things like that.
I'm a pyro by nature, so I love playing with fire.
Yeah. Well, it's the close of summer, unfortunately. Like we're in the last 2 weeks or a week or so of August. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I'm also excited because my whole family will be out of my hair as I try to build this room in my backyard. So
back at school.
That's right. So I'll have all day to work. And so that is the other thing that this last week I've been trying to finalize is the very first delivery of materials that I need to build out the floor platform for this room. So
yeah, it'll be really exciting.
It almost seems surreal because I've just been talking about it and thinking about it for like 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now finally physical things will be delivered pretty soon.
It is becoming real.
That's right. Okay, well, speaking of the end of August, that's one of the reasons why we didn't do an episode last week was because I was on vacation, and it's always hard to schedule and do stuff during vacation. So really, this is the news for the last 2 weeks, so the weeks of August 10th and August 17th. Would you want to start us out with some cool TypeScript news?
Yeah, the content mapper branch for TSGo, which is just TypeScript now, has been merged as part of 7.1. So that'll be as part of 7.1. It's according to Blue Sky user Marvin Hagemeister, this is what every framework dev has dreamed of for years. It's very exciting. And you might be like, okay, what is content mappers? And you can think of this a lot like a Webpack loader where it's like, hey, how do I interpret this file that isn't TypeScript as content for the compiler? How do I interpret this? So like examples might be Vue files, it might be React files, it might be, pick my favorite DSL file. This is huge for folks that are doing like Svelte and Vue and things that or maybe even Prisma. Like, I don't know if Prisma's DSL for their databases, I think it's a .prisma file.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Might also be capable of being supported in this. But this is pretty cool because like one thing that you'd be like, okay, that's cool. But what's cool is you get LSP information. So like it becomes part of the whole tooling experience, which is A+ good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. 7.1 coming along. Very exciting. We have a Bun announcement. So we've talked about the Bun Rust rewrite, which was going to be coming out with Bun 1.4. And it's been a few months. It's been, I think, 3 months since they started the rewrite. And so Bun 1.4 dropped. So this is the big kahuna, the one with Rust. So they've got a whole video on it. So if you want to watch that, you can, but basically just quoting from the first paragraph here, Bun 1.4 adds over 1,500 tests from the Node.js test suite, our biggest jump in Node.js compatibility since Bun 1.0. Bun 1.4 also fixes over 2,900 issues. It reduces idle CPU usage by 5 times, reduces memory usage by up to 35%, and starts 50% faster on Linux. It adds bun.image, bun.webview, bun.markdown, cron, terminal, run parallel, test parallel, audit fix, dedupe, and prune, and it rewrites Bun from Zig to Rust. So this blog post covers everything we've shipped since Bun 1.3. So really, this is Bun 2.0, but it's 1.4, as per usual with their versioning scheme. So this is a major release. This is huge.
Yeah, in my opinion, they should have done 2.0.
Yeah, I think in a lot of people's opinion, they should have done 2.0, but they do them. But I think if you are using Bun, like this is huge news for you. So yeah, this is pretty massive. They've got a pretty good blog post and lots of visuals on like their test coverage and stuff for a lot of the Node.js modules. And so definitely want to take a look at it. This blog post is like way too much to like cover, but they talk about CPU usage, and since Claude Code is now using version 1.4, this is a production application, and they are reporting that production CPU usage dropped by 2 times. So the P99 went from 24% to 10%, and the P50 went from 5.8% to 2.5%. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's not just like that they just did it with the announcement. They've actually been testing it on all of you who've been running Claude Code. They silently shipped it into prod. So I guess that's one way to find the kinks.
Yes. Yep. And believe me, I've been using Claude, so I guess I've been a test subject of this.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So you can go take a look at the video and take a look at the blog post. But pretty big news if you're in the Bun ecosystem.
Yeah. I think I might give it a little more time to cook before I hop on to 1.4, just considering how drastic the change has been between 1.3 and 1.4. I think I might give this one a little time to cook if I were running a business on Bun.
Yeah, that's right. Moving on to some cross-platform tooling. You know that I'm a big fan of Aspire, and I've recently implemented Aspire for my own app, which is super awesome because it was built on Docker Compose before. And man, was it just a pain to like spin up and work on locally. And now I've migrated to Aspire. Well, they have released Aspire 13.5. So we can talk about what's new there. And there's a whole bunch of stuff, including interactive terminal sessions, which you can use with Terminal. And then the interaction service now works across both C# and TypeScript app hosts. Because remember, recently they added the ability for you to define your entire app host with just TypeScript. So you don't even have to use C# if you're using Aspire now. You can just do it all with TypeScript. And as a reminder, Aspire is for cross-platform tooling. So you can host a Node.js project, you can host a .NET project, Rust, Go, like basically whatever you want, because it's basically just a local development container orchestrator that sort of manages all that for you. So if you have any kind of app, if it includes a database, you basically have a distributed application, right? And so Aspire lets you orchestrate that together so that you don't have to deal with like passing secrets around and, doing port bindings and all that kind of stuff. It's all written in code. You can even programmatically write your own custom extensions to it. It's awesome. So definitely does not just apply to .NET projects. It applies to everybody now. But there's a lot of cool stuff in 13.5. And one other cool thing is that the Aspire CLI is now also on NPM. So that's pretty sweet.
I think two features that look really cool is they added an interaction service, so you can like ask questions in the terminal, and like so you can have like a wizard if you need like configuration, and that's just kind of first party. So that's pretty slick. And then there's also file uploads and progress dialogues. So like, am I waiting? Is it doing a thing? Is it? Now you can get a little user feedback.
And then the other big thing is that the TypeScript app host is no longer experimental. It is now stable and generally available. So since the last version, you could create a TypeScript app host, but it was technically like unstable because it was experimental, but now generally available.
Yep. I am very excited about this, especially for stuff at my work, because I think for folks that have like a polyglot environment, forcing like C# on everyone in a polyglot environment, it's kind of a tough ask potentially, but TypeScript is less of a tough ask.
All right. Moving on to some Metaframework news. We talked about the SvelteKit 3 preview, but guess what? The release candidate is here and they've got a blog post. So now we can finally talk about what's new with SvelteKit 3. And obviously there are some breaking changes. And so they do have like a migration using SV migrate. So you can just run an npx command and you can migrate to SvelteKit 3. And it says that this will automatically migrate as much of your code as possible. For everything else, it will generate a to-do list for you or your clanker of choice to work through. Which I love. I think that's hilarious. Wherever possible, SvelteKit will print useful diagnostic warnings and errors if you try to run code that hasn't yet been updated. So there's a huge amount of stuff. A lot of it is cleanup, like for configuration. And so it says like previously you would configure SvelteKit via a svelte.config.js file. This turned out to be limiting. It's useful for the Vite plugin to have access to your config immediately rather than having to go through an asynchronous resolution process. And after all, why wouldn't we put your config in one place rather than two? And so as a result, TypeScript configuration got simpler. In SvelteKit 3, you extend tsconfig. This generated config file is written to your node modules /app app folder and contains configuration that is specific to your app. So while it's simpler than the SvelteKit 2 version, It also includes more recommended compiler options, which mean you can likely delete your own compiler options unless you have esoteric requirements. So that's pretty cool. Service workers got a facelift. Environment variables are more powerful. Error handling is way better. Shallow routing now happens with Go 2. They've fully implemented v8 roll down and the environment API. They have some remote functions, and it looks like these were behind an experimental flag, or are behind an experimental flag, but this is pretty cool. So this, alongside async Svelte, is our vision for how client-server communication should be handled. So anyway, lots and lots of cool stuff that I think you can read more and learn more about.
Next on the list, SolidStart v2 is now stable. If you're not familiar, it's like the SvelteKit to the Svelte. So it's the Metaframework for Solid. So what they say in their announcement is SolidStart v2 modernizes the foundation for building full stack applications with Solid v1. So this replaces the Vinxi, I don't know how to say it, Vinxi, with the direct use of the Vite environment API for both client and server builds. Simpler architecture all around. So that's good. It's building directly on Vite 8, which gives it access to the roll-down powered toolchain, better compatibility with Vite plugins like Tailwind v4. It also enables direct integration with like the environments API for like Nitro, Cloudflare, Netlify, all those goodies. They're already like looking ahead to Vite 9's breaking changes. So SolidStart v2 is going to be compatible with Vite 9 on day one. So that's pretty cool. Upgrading is pretty easy. You just move your configuration from app.config to vite.config, and then make sure that you're running Node.24 or newer and Vite 8 or newer. And then there's a full guide here linked for like any kind of like types, imports, and middleware that you need to change.
That's right. And really the guide is pretty short. So I feel like this is a pretty easy upgrade, which is really cool.
You love to see it. You love to see it. And I love frameworks that have like a checklist and not just like leave you to the wolves, but also I love like a script. It's like that can get you the 99%.
Moving on to some web platform news. So Dino has come out with not really a library, but more of a tool. And if you're familiar with Cloudflare workers and durable objects, this is called CellD, and it allows you to do self-hosted distributed durable objects. So essentially, take your workers and durable objects and self-host them in your own containers. And what's cool about this is that your workers and durable objects code remains unchanged. So it supports those APIs out of the box. But for example, you can run in a Docker container and you can just host it yourself. You don't have to host it on top of Cloudflare's infrastructure if you don't want to.
Yeah, and in their documentation, they say that it's compatible with any S3 compatible. So like it speaks the S3 protocol, bucket storage, which is basically everything. It's kind of the de facto, storage lingua. And they also say that if you're not familiar with like durable objects, it's really a small server and with a name and a private SQLite database. And you make a cell for each user, document, chat room, agent, yada, 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 for whatever you need to store. And it'll persist it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. In one of my recent courses, I used durable objects to do like an AI chat agent, and they're pretty neat. And I don't mind hosting it on Cloudflare, but I know a lot of teams and a lot of companies want to have their own infrastructure. And so this is basically allowing you to self-host your own version of Cloudflare workers and durable objects. So that's pretty cool. Next up, speaking of Cloudflare, Cloudflare is announcing a $1 million in open source funding, in addition to a new Cloudflare ambassadors program and the idea of community engineers. So this is pretty cool. I mean, we have seen Cloudflare acquire Astro, acquire Void Zero. I mean, they're really getting into the web platform space and the tooling space. So it is really cool to see them sponsor open source projects.
Do you think Excalibur video games improve the internet?
I don't know.
For no reason.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you can argue that. That would be funny. But basically, who are Cloudflare ambassadors? Cloudflare ambassadors are people who bring Cloudflare into their own communities. So you can probably think of people in the communities you value who share a genuine passion for a product or technology. It's inspiring, and we love to see it. When that enthusiasm includes the tools we're building here at Cloudflare, it's especially exciting for us. So you can, if you want to be an ambassador, you can follow their application process. And each year, they'll have a cohort of ambassadors. And so it says here that selected ambassadors will receive support, resources, and benefits to help their community thrive and bring their ideas to life.
This really reminds me of the Microsoft MVP program.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, Eric, if you want funding from Cloudflare, you just have to build like a multiplayer service on top of Cloudflare that maybe you can qualify.
That. Yeah. I'll get on that. That's a hard problem.
That's right. Node.js had some cool news this last couple weeks. They hosted the Node.js Interactive 2026, and this was a 2-day speaker program where attendees learned that the future of Node.js is more than its extensive APIs. It also depends on the people who maintain critical infrastructure, the standards that keep runtimes interoperable, the platforms that make safe development easier, or the documentation and tests that turn new ideas into dependable software. So there's a bunch of talks that you can go check out. The opening talk is Node.js runs AI, who runs Node.js. So it's talking a lot about the ecosystem and maintainers specifically, and open source and stuff like that. We've got code, consensus, and community, how the JS ecosystem continues to move forward together. That's from a workers engineering manager at Cloudflare. And then we've also got the supply chain, like Anti-slop and the vulnerability treadmill. So that's pretty cool. There's another one from Fastly on platform thinking for the AI era. Another one from Matteo Collina, who we've featured multiple times from Platformatic on the new Node.js built-in batteries and the road ahead. So talking a lot about some of the things that we've covered here on the show, like modern Node.js includes built-in TypeScript type stripping, node test, node assert, native.env file loading, fetch powered by Undisi, watch mode, node SQLite, and the stable permission model, among a great many other things. So yeah, that's pretty cool. There's some like future stuff that's Node.js is working on. So James Snell, who we've also featured, he's a systems engineer at Cloudflare, talks about Quick in Node.js, and that's QUIC. Quick is a secure multiplex transport protocol built on UDP, and HTTP3 maps HTTP semantics onto Quick. So Node.js's Node Quick implementation is still in active development. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Next on the list, disturbance in the force. Folks are sensing weakness in GitHub. And Netlify has announced a Netlify source product where, in their own words, they say an ambitious effort that hopes to bring version control in-house as part of the platform, which I actually think makes a lot of sense, especially for like CI/CD purposes, and how, that's been a big part of the Netlify aspect. So I think that does make a lot of sense. And there's a full interview with the Netlify CTO, Donna Lawson, in text format, and then they also have a LinkedIn video that you can watch if you're interested. But this is interesting, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this. In particular, I don't think like version control has a particularly strong moat around it. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this, as version control is critical to business. And speaking from personal experience this week, my business was impacted by the GitHub outage. And that's just becoming harder and harder to ignore. And I think we're just going to see maybe a diversification of Git hosting providers in the near future, as because GitHub kind of won there for a hot minute.
Yes.
And now I think there's their facade is starting to show cracks.
Them is fighting words.
Maybe. I still like it. I mean, I don't think I'm moving anytime soon. I just wish it wouldn't go down as much.
Yeah. That's critical infrastructure.
It really is.
You can't be going down.
No, for sure.
Speaking of critical infrastructure, we do have a security PSA. If you're a Rust developer, which maybe includes some of our audience, because we know that Rust has taken over a lot of the developer toolchain in the JavaScript ecosystem. Some popular Rust crates have been compromised in a build time supply chain attack. So it looks like 3 legitimate Rust crates maintained by David Roundy, array ref, internment, and append-only vec. So looks like those ones were affected. Each malicious release added a dependency on proc macro 1, a threat actor-controlled typo squat impersonating the widely used proc macro 2 crate.
No.
Oh no. So yeah, obviously they say we recommend treating any system that built with one of these malicious versions as potentially compromised. So you can read the blog post for those exact versions. But if you're in the Rust ecosystem, beware.
Yeah, and it was an equal opportunity vulnerability because it worked on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So don't feel superior depending on your operating system.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We've got some library watches to go through. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, we have a library called Slonick, a Node.js Postgres client with runtime and build time safety built in. And this has kind of been like our perennial ask for like this kind of runtime safety built in. And I just absolutely love it. So what they say is it started as a collection of utilities for working with the Node Postgres package, but it continued to evolve into a way of doing things that kept code patterns like safe and repeatable. And by the way, I guess Slonick is a Polish diminutive for little elephant. So that's, and I'm probably definitely pronouncing that wrong.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Most definitely pronouncing that wrong.
I think I love the 2 principles that they start out with, which is basically promotes writing raw SQL, which I'm a fan of, less magic, right? And discourages ad hoc dynamic generation of SQL. So those are 2 things that I like. But you still get the strict types and type checking, which is really cool.
This really does remind me of this is my favorite .NET SQL library is Dapper.
Yeah.
This looks and feels a lot like Dapper, where you're writing raw SQL air quotes, but it's in like template strings that are scanned for injection. So it does you get the power of you knowing what your query is doing with also the safety of I'm not getting owned.
That's right. Next up, James from the E18E organization, the Environment Optimization Initiative, announced deopt, and I think you'll like this, Eric. It's a tool for analyzing Node.js/V8 de-optimizations. Yeah, so this is a collection of tools for tracing, visualizing, and debugging de-optimization in Node.js and V8. So one of your questions is probably like, what is a de-optimization? Well, first of all, you should go watch Eric's high performance JavaScript talk because he talks about this. But it says here that when running JavaScript in an engine backed by V8, like Node.js and Chrome, V8 will often optimize your code when it is being executed many times. If your code ends up optimized, then is called in a way that surprises V8, it will then become de-optimized. For example, if a function repeatedly operates on objects of the same shape and is then passed an object with a different shape, V8 will de-optimize the function and fall back to the slower, unoptimized bytecode. And so what this tool does is it will warn you when there might be a deopt involved. And that's pretty cool. There's a bunch of different flags that you can pass to Node and to V8 to get that information. And so then you can pass that to deopt, and it will give you like a markdown report. And so some of the prior art, if you want to look at some other libraries, this was originally forked from deoptigate and heavily reworked. So huge thanks to the Lorens for the original work and inspiration. So this is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's also some links on here that are good reading from the V8 blog talking about how the like hidden classes work and it's exactly what you think it is. It's like if your shape is the same, you can do like a C-type struct for, oversimplifying it, but you can do that kind of thing in your JavaScript runtime. But if you have different shapes coming through, you have to fall back to the slow way of interpreting.
That's right.
Next up on the list, Yov Codes just announced that ElectroBun 2 is here, and there's too many things to fit in a bleat, so he has a blog post called Cottontail ElectroBun 2 and why I decided to, I don't know what that means, Jan Yang Anthropic. I have no idea what that means. That probably means something. Hopefully it's not bad. But I'll include a link to the blog post. But suffice it to say, the number one goal is to stabilize 2.0. It's been through a few weeks of testing. This is a huge launch, so you can report bugs back. And what are the new features here?
Well, I mean, it buries the lead a little bit, but Cottontail is a new JavaScript runtime written around JavaScript core in Zig. It has Node and Bun compatibility where it makes sense, so most packages should just work, is competitive performance-wise and already smaller than Bun on macOS, Windows, and Linux. It exists so ElectroBun can have a small JavaScript runtime designed around applications rather than inherit the architecture and roadmap of a server runtime. And so this also comes with a new CLI called Hutch. It handles building and packaging, but can now operate outside of NPM, handle all the new main process technologies and tool chains like Rust, Zig, Go, and Odin. And since the JavaScript ecosystem doesn't have a canonical non-profit NPM client, Hutch has a lightweight NPM resolver built in so you can do Hutch install to install your NPM packages. ElectroBun 2.0 moves the core of the framework into Zig, so it's faster, lets you choose Cottontail, Bun, Zig, Rust, Go, or Odin for your main process, independently of whether your UI uses system web views, pinned Chromium, native web GPU, or some combination of them. And then Warren, which is sort of the rabbit, this is a lot of rabbit terminology here. Warren is an experimental fine-grained reactive UI framework inspired by SolidJS that makes reactivity more explicit, doesn't require a compiler, and works both in the DOM in a web view and directly against ElectroBun's native GPU UI primitives directly in the main process. So basically, this is pretty massive. I mean, this is almost a core rewrite of ElectroBun, and we've got a new Zig core. I think the Cottontail is really interesting, and so he talks a lot around like how he started with Quick.js, but unfortunately, he says it was also hilariously slow.
Yeah, there's no JIT.
Yeah,
this is the fact that they are going this direction is very exciting because this means that they have a lot of like game development like stuff available to them, especially with like Odin and Zig. Like there's a lot of like game dev stuff available to you there, and Rust too. But this just feels like I'm like really excited to try this.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Just to clarify, because I was wondering as we were going through this blog post, like how Cottontail was built. It says here that Cottontail is a spiritual Zig fork of Bun in roughly the same sense that Bun was a spiritual fork of Node. It is not Bun's old Zig architecture. It uses JavaScript core, has its own APIs and internal architecture, and implements Node and Bun compatibility where that's useful. So this path gives me room to make choices that don't make sense for Bun. For example, Cottontail has its own streaming HTML rewriter written in Zig rather than using LOL HTML, a Rust library, through FFI. Cottontail's JSC fork exposes the internal methods Cottontail actually needs instead of Bun's approach of mapping internal memory layouts and hoping that they remain stable across JSC updates. On Windows and Linux, I've been able to make JSC, the JavaScript core, much smaller than even Rust Bun by being more aggressive about how ICU data is handled. So anyway, this is like purpose-built runtime for ElectroBun in order to be focused on desktop rendering, which is, I think, really cool.
Yeah, this is super cool. And it also kind of goes to show like how powerful like JITs are, like moving in this direction. Because Quick.js is extremely impressive, don't get me wrong. And it's kind of a reference implementation for JavaScript at this point. And you can do the Lua thing, and it's one file, you can embed it anywhere. So it's really awesome in that way. But for their purpose, they needed more speed.
Yep. And if you're wondering like why build ElectroBun in the first place, it's because Blackboard, which is the company behind ElectroBun, is building Dash, which is a new kind of IDE that combines code and no code into a single experience for your whole team. And then your team has expanded to include AI agents. And so it's really purpose-built for that. So Dash Desktop today already has an integrated code editor terminal web tabs. It lets you download and chat with open weight models locally or use Frontier model harnesses and terminal tabs. And it has a Git GUI that I've been building to replace the standalone Git clients I used before. So Dash itself is built with ElectroBun 2.0, Cottontail, Hutch, and Warren. So that's something to check out too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I am definitely going to be looking very closely at ElectroBun here in the future, especially selfishly for my game projects, but also Cottontail, this new runtime seems extremely exciting.
Yeah, I mean, did I mention before that I built a little vibe-coded app with ElectroBun?
I think you told me. I don't know if you said it on the show, though.
Yeah, so I've got a little vibe-coded app that I built because I wanted a desktop app so that I could just run it from my taskbar. And it's basically just like an earnings forecaster where I can put in my Pluralsight earnings and it gives me like some historical reporting and like future reporting so I can do some income scheduling and stuff. And so I told Claude or Copilot, I don't even remember now, to build it with ElectroBun, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of vibe code, we have a list from, I'm going to get their name wrong, Qualta.dev on Blue Sky, a list of anti-slop lint rules. And you too can decide that you don't want it to do the easy thing where it does the change type assertion, where it does as object as user or as unknown as thing or as any, or so there's about a dozen here, a little more than a dozen rules that you can put in place to keep agents from doing the easy thing and trying not to do work, like deleting the test that fails. Like that happened to me the other day. It works now that I deleted the test that you added. Dude! Yeah, so check this out.
And just to be clear, this is for Biome, but it's a port of the anti-slop rules from Oxlint. So if you're using Oxlint, the one that you're looking at, probably you want to go to DM Mulroy anti-slop.
Yes.
We'll link to both of those.
To the show notes too.
We'll link to both of those repos. So one is for Biome, if you're using Biome, and one is for Oxlint. They're the same thing. It's just a port of one or the other. So
yeah, and the Oxlint rules, as far as I know, are completely compatible with ESLint.
Yes.
Or maybe it's the other way around. ESLint are completely compatible with Oxlint.
Yep.
Maybe it's not the other way around.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
This last one made me laugh on Blue Sky. Blue Sky user suchipai.bluesky.social posted a new version of JavaScript, which is spelled IAVA script. That is the name of the program. It's not a new language. It uses normal JavaScript to build cross-platform Bash-like script runners, which are distributed as a single statically linked program. So why would you want to do this? Well, this exists as an alternative to Bash scripts. So instead of writing heinous Bash scripts, you can write JavaScript.
That's right. So it's only 5 megabytes. There's no dependencies, not even Node.js. JavaScript is easy to install or include in a Docker image. So it's suitable for all the places you'd use shell scripts now. It's a great fit for those sort of environment level infrastructure scripts that every Git repo ends up needing, like build the app, pull the latest Docker images, or install, use the correct versions of languages and tools, etc.
And so, speaking of Quick.js, JavaScript is powered by a fork of Quick.js.
Cool.
Which we've talked about quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool things that it includes. Like you can deserialize JSON, CSV, YAML, and TOML. You can parse command line flags into a structured object. You can safely manipulate and resolve path strings. You can work with raw byte buffers and typed arrays. You can reliably get the path to the currently running script, which is always a big pain in the butt. It's got typed interfaces and functions via TypeScript, cross-file import, export using ECMAScript modules, and you can even call low-level POSIX APIs like fputs, sprintf, and isati. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No longer will I write Bash scripts. I will be writing JavaScript.
JavaScript. Love it. All right, let's move on to some community highlights. A lot of people have been up to a lot of stuff. So
yeah,
there's a lot to highlight here.
There is a really great podcast, video podcast with Ryan Peterman, where he interviews Anders Heijlsberg.
Yeah.
Talking about the recent 10x faster TypeScript Go port and why AI is not going to replace software engineers anytime soon.
That's good.
I do recommend. I watched the whole thing. It's a very good interview, and I'm pretty aligned with Anders on this one.
That's cool.
And next up is another interview with Matt Pocock and Uncle Bob. So Matt interviews Uncle Bob about what are the software fundamentals in the age of AI. And spoiler alert, all of the lessons we learned still apply. I think is maybe the summary of that. But I think it's an interesting interview to go through and listen to.
Sweet. From friend of the show, Josh Goldberg, who you probably know as one of the maintainers and creators of TypeScript Lint, as well as maintainer of Mocha and all sorts of other projects. It's sort of sad to hear that Josh is stepping back from open source mostly. So he's added contributors to, like, he's basically done like a handoff for all of his projects. So like there's nothing that's going to be like not maintained, but yeah, he's taken a step back from open source. He's super grateful to everyone who's helped maintain the projects along the way, and for now he's going to go touch grass, which we can respect.
I probably need to go and touch some grass.
Yep. Well, I don't have to worry about that. I definitely will be doing that.
Yep. Same. And related, Josh also posted a hackathon project that they used to mine the last 2,000 or so pull request reviews he did on TypeScript ESLint to make some agent skills to help review like all of the code that he used to review. So helping the team out there. But it's a lot. It's a lot of really interesting. There's like a skill for code clarity, docs writing, fixers, rule conventions, rule performance, shared logic tests, and types, not workarounds, which I think is a good one just to read as a human.
Yeah, these
like
are great.
I say, things that are good for the agent are also good for the human, are also good for the agent.
That's right. You can go and install these skills immediately and start using them. That's cool. Next up, there's a video by Maximilian on CellD and going into it. And so you can replace Cloudflare in your infrastructure if you want to check that out. Then we've got an example from the community from Remco on an MDX content mapper for TypeScript 7. So if you really want to understand why content mappers are cool and useful, then I think you want to go check out Remco's work. He's got a screenshot of a type check running in a GitHub flavored markdown code block inside the editor. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's what a content mapper allows you to do. And that was just by accident because he bleated that he accidentally added type checking to markdown code block files instead of just MDX. So that's the kind of cool stuff you can do. But basically, this content mapper supports MDX. So you can write your MDX file, you can write TypeScript in it inside of code blocks, and it will get type checked by TS7. So that is what these new APIs are going to enable, which is really cool to see.
Next up, Feross, Aboukhadijeh has a blog post about how AI agents expand the software supply chain attack surface. And at their talk here, there's 3 highlights. 1, agents are arbitrary and capricious sometimes and will install and run random code. So you better have a tool like Socket to help protect you from that thing. Existing security infrastructure assumes humans are using their human brain to make good decisions, which is a thing agents don't do. And that right now, the infrastructure is struggling to keep up with the speed at which these things are moving.
That's right. And Feross, I think, is one of the only people in the industry with the authority to speak on this because they are the CEO of Socket.
Yes.
So he sees this stuff up close and personal. Next up from Reddit, from the subreddit, the TypeScript subreddit, I thought this thread was sort of amusing, but kind of funny. Basically, its title is, I would like to personally apologize to the creators of TypeScript. So this was a hater who has now turned into a lover of TypeScript. But the other thing that I thought was really funny about this is that me and you, Eric, have both opined for the ability to do union types in C# because that's like the one thing that I love about TypeScript and I wish was in C#. And someone commented that C# 15 is going to have union types. And yes, it looks a little bit different than what I'm used to in TypeScript, but we're going to get it. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, one thing that always bugged me in C# is like if you did like the nullable int,
Mm-hmm.
it was not what you would expect from like a TypeScript. Like it's a union between int and null.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's this weird sugar around a struct in C#. So it boxes your int in a struct, and then there's like you got to check a has value. So you can't. Yeah, it's sad.
Yep, but it sounds like we're gonna get some of our cake. We get to eat it a little bit.
Yep. Next up from Syntax, Scott Tolinksi from Syntax has a really great video on the true cost of AI coding and talks about how a friend of theirs wound up in the hospital from prompting, like how things can lead to crash and burnout, why it's so addictive. It's a spoiler, it's the gambler effect. It's a variable reward. So it hits your lizard brain with with dopamine variably, and then that just works really well on us. And then there's like all of these other systemic aspects from like management, expecting like more output. Is more output good though? No, not necessarily. Definitely not if your quality is part of it. And like what happens to you if you like succumb to all of this, and like what's like a healthy way to interact with these tools and touch grass. So like these things will also confidently lie to you and confidently tell you wrong information. So like you have to be very careful.
That's right. Next up from Carlos Menezes, we have a blog post on hiding internal state in TypeScript objects. And this is a really simple blog post, but it's basically talking about how you like typically you might do something like where you put an underscore, in front of a property or in front of a method to signal that it's internal only. But you don't have to do that anymore. One thing you can do is you could use the private keyword or the hashtag, which is actually part of JavaScript. But the other approach that they show is using a unique symbol, which is kind of cool. So if you make a unique symbol, you make that boundary stronger, and you can still store regular object properties. And so a symbol keyed property can only be accessed with the same symbol instance. So if you keep that symbol inside the module, consumers have no direct reference to the property key. So that's how you can like truly do kind of internal state. Because in JavaScript, even the like hashtag private stuff, you can still access it. So it's more of like a compiler deterrence, not like a JavaScript language thing.
Yeah. This is the unique symbol is also a way of doing like a sealed, like same reasoning applies, because you can't describe the symbol if you never expose it to the caller. So like if someone's trying to extend a unique, a thing that returns a unique symbol, they can't. So that's one trick I've used to prevent extension.
Yes, and I think it's worth clarifying that it's not a guarantee. And Carlos mentions here that the property can still be discovered with reflect.own keys or object.getOwn property symbols. And object spread copies enumerable symbol properties, but still, for library APIs where the goal is to discourage accidental access rather than defend against hostile code, a non-exported unique symbol does provide a clean boundary. So, of course, with JavaScript, we can't fully hide everything, but this makes it way harder to do it, and especially you can't do it accidentally. So that's the most important thing.
Next up, we have a blog post from Tommy Rossi talking about errors as values in TypeScript.
Actually, it's not a blog post. It's a manifesto.
Manifesto.
Yeah.
And this is all like the whole thrust of this is Go style error handling for TypeScript, unions instead of tuples, and instance of instead of nil checks. So this is pretty great. And I've found myself doing something similar in my own coding lately. But this does make it a lot easier to reason about versus like having scary try catches everywhere. But this manifesto has this is like incredibly specific. So like for each type of situation that you might find yourself in, they provide an example, including like effect as well. And that effect meaning like effect.
Yeah, and they've got an agent skill that you can install too. So I think if we keep talking about errors as values, and like there are multiple blog posts and stuff, but this is like just a dedicated domain you can send people to be like, this is what I'm talking about with errors as values, and then you've got an agent skill to go along with it. So you can teach your agents to do this type of pattern instead of try catch.
Yeah, and maybe for a concrete example here is like you have async function get user ID. It returns a promise of not found unioned with user, which I think the ergonomics there feels a lot better than like Go's ergonomics, in my opinion.
Yep. So you can be explicit, like either you get a user or you get a not found error. Much better. Relatedly, Brett Codes has a YouTube video on this pattern. So it's titled TypeScript and JavaScript Error Handling is Pretty Bad and How to Make It Better. And so they'll talk through like why try catch is not a great pattern and what to do instead, which is going to be errors as values.
Yeah, and Brett Codes recently has been on my mind because they've talked about completely writing off AI development. So they have a couple of videos that are really thought-provoking about like how they've just decided not to use LLMs in their workflow anymore.
Awesome. And we got a little bit of a spicy take, and this was published before Bun 1.4 was recently released in sort of the interim time as people were like awaiting, like when is 1.4 going to come out? And this post is the Bun 1.4 Rust rewrite is not looking good. And this is by someone who cares about Bun. So this is someone in the community who is a Bun user who cares about Bun, and they're just like, well, they keep saying that tomorrow Bun 1.4 is going to ship, and it just never happened. And just to be clear, 1.4 came out on the 20th of August, and so this blog post was written
somewhere between August 17th and August 24th. I'd say that this was written.
Yeah, I think this was written about August 17th or thereabouts, so just a few days before it actually dropped. But I think it sort of encapsulates some of the community sentiment around like the Bun rewrite and how long it took to work through those 2,900 issues.
Yeah, I think there are some good points here in this article, and I think it's also probably a reason why I would still give pause to betting my company on Bun.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, with such a big change, like you just want to wait till it's had a chance to cook a little bit longer, right? And people find more edge cases or things like that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a fun read. It's a little spicy.
Yep, it's all good.
Next up, I am advertising that the GameDev.js survey 2026 is open. Go and do your civic duty and fill out the survey. It is open between August 18th and September 18th, and it's a survey about folks' background in experience in game development on the web. So, and 10 lucky participants will win a prize.
Nice. We've got a bleat of the week, and this one goes to Blue Sky's CTO, Paul Frazee. But really, it's a sub-bleat of Heather Flowers, who is a game developer. And Paul's bleat is that every object-oriented language introduction starts with showing the clean hierarchy of dog and cat inheriting from animal, while every real code base is like this line of code: bool is gun equals knife.getComponent gun. And Heather says, I think this is a contender for the stupidest line of code I've ever written.
If you've ever seen game code, yep. Yeah. We had a fun story. I think, Cameron, you were there for this, but we had a accidental God class called Bullet Factory that was the entire game. One game we wrote one time. So Bullet Factory basically ran the show.
That's pretty funny. And then someone replied that every object in the X-Men Origins Wolverine video game had an is attack helicopter bit flag on it. So yeah, this happens in AAA game development all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, does it work?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
I think games have like maybe one advantage in that you ship them and then you fix bugs.
Yep.
And so if they work, they work. And they're not like enterprise software that needs to live for decades.
Yep. They just keep working. We have some cool links. You want to start us off?
Yeah. And so I have an axe to grind, and I'm going to start with a term that I heard, and I forget where I heard it because I would attribute it, but it's the most cursed term I've heard in a long time, and that is meat proxy. And you'd be like, what is that? Stop pasting the AI answer to me and laundering your chat with Claude through your meat proxy. Okay, this has happened to me more and more, but it's abundantly clear that I'm not talking to the person on the other end of the Slack conversation and that they are laundering our entire chat through Claude. And it is incredibly frustrating and disrespectful. It basically says, I don't have the patience or time to read what you wrote and understand it. And it's abundantly clear to everyone when you're doing it. So if this is you, cut it out.
Gotta stop.
Stop doing this. Use your human brain to respond to a question. I could type the question into Claude. I don't need you to be the meat proxy. End of rant. And if you would like also to send this to someone, maybe don't. You can go to don'tpastetheai.com for the maybe the little gentler one. It's still kind of spicy. Or you can go don'tpastetheai.com/angry if you want to burn some bridges.
Yeah. I feel this too. I don't think I've been on the receiving end of this because, I don't talk to too many people as part of work. I mean, and the people that I do talk to, I've talked over Slack, and everyone's been human so far. But I'm sure that this is a problem.
Do not do this.
Yeah, don't do it.
Do not do this. Also, do not put this in your PR description. Do not do this. You can maybe have the thing give you, if you don't remember what you did, maybe have it give you some bullet points, and then you reconstruct from your memory what's important in your own voice. Do not paste it. Oh my God. I basically auto detect it now, and I just tune it out. I'm just it's clearly got no signal in it.
Yep. There's only one case where I think it's okay, and it does call this out too, in that if you have been using Claude to, for example, do some bug reproduction or bug analysis, it can spit out a whole bunch of detailed analysis, but you don't just copy and paste that and put it into an issue description. You got to put some regular human thinking context ahead of it. And I recently did this for a bug with Aspire, where I found an issue with a memory leak, or not really a memory leak, but it was holding on to a process as a parent and holding on to the child process and wouldn't let go of it. And so I had Claude analyze it, and it did find the root cause. And so what I did is I pasted some of its output. I copied very select portions of it that I thought were the most relevant to the issue, but I put it under a disclaimer. And I said, hey, I did use Claude to try to figure this out, and it found the root cause. Here's my workaround, but this is what it said. And I explicitly quoted it. You know what I mean? I attributed that output that I put into the issue description, that was Claude. But the rest of it, I wrote up, right? Because I'm the one reporting the issue and I'm responsible for it. And I'm happy to say that they fixed the bug. So that's pretty cool. So it's in the next version of Aspire, the release that we just talked about. But I think that's the responsible way of copying output from Claude is in a very specific circumstance where it actually does have some of the detail that you can't just rewrite yourself very easily. I think that makes sense. But then you have to say this is an output from Claude, so people understand that there's a disclaimer around it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's okay. Especially when I'm okay, here's another one. This is such an anti-pattern, by the way, is when I have certain people making Jira tickets that ask Claude to do it. Oh my God, stop that. Because 0% of what's in that Jira ticket is valid. It just confuses other engineers because they're reading it and they're like, what is going on here? What are they trying to say or ask for? Right. Use your human brain. When you're asking another human to do work, use your brain.
Yes.
Type out what you want, please.
That's right. This goes back to one of my core heuristics for using AI tools is to not use them with any kind of task that requires human empathy. Because they can't do it. They have no empathy. They're not human, right? So that includes writing, that includes emails, that includes making calls, that includes Slack messages, anything that you write to another human being. Don't launder it through Claude. You can use it to get ideas, use it to summarize stuff, get bullet points, but you got to do the writing.
Don't be a meat proxy.
That's right. So my cool link is a shout out to another podcast, localfirst.fm, which if you're not familiar, the local first kind of movement or philosophy, I guess, is being able to write an application that works locally first, offline, and then can work with an internet connection. And this is super appealing if you have very interactive applications, like obviously a desktop application, but if you have like a mobile application and you just want it to work without an internet connection, right? And you still want it to have most of the features. Local first is that kind of philosophy and strategy. And there are a lot of tools in the ecosystem for that. And so the podcast has put up like a landscape page, which I thought was really awesome. And so some of the tools that I'm familiar with are on there, like PouchDB is one of them, and PowerSync, which is kind of the one that I'm leaning toward for my own purposes. But they've got a really great landscape matrix that sort of break down all the different features of these tools and what they do and what they can't do. So if you're trying to understand the landscape, this is like a great page for that.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like it's got a vertical and a horizontal scroll bar.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much.
Yep.
But like if you're trying to make a decision about like a technology, definitely go and consult this grid.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. So that brings us to the Minnesota long goodbye. What thoughts are raging around in your head?
I'm kind of sick of agents and agent talk. Here's my spicy take. I just don't feel like there's a lot of there after you get like past like the basics. I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot of there. I think what is there is all of the things that we learned about software development over the last 30 years. And it's really tempting to throw it, to not remember all of the lessons we've learned about software engineering. So I think now more than ever, it's more important to have strong software engineering practices, because if, and I found this to be personally true, and maybe this is a skill issue, that 95% of the time, it's great. It's exactly what I would write. But 5% of the time, it's absolute cuckoo banana pants, right? And if you don't tamp down that 5%, like if 5% times 5% times 5%, like it's going to compound, and then you'll just have to declare a code bankruptcy because not even God understands what that code base is doing.
Yes. Yep. Really it applies to anything that you're doing with these AI tools. Like I've mentioned before, I'm using Claude to help me with this garden room build in my backyard. And I very quickly switched to using like Notion to do like a structured data so that Claude can pull from like a single source of truth for a lot of this stuff. Because like a lot of the things that it would spit out in the conversation, sort of like you are relying on its ability to recall information or like look back on past conversations and its memory. And those things just are not reliable. And I also needed a way to like deterministically say like, hey, for example, the stud spacing on the walls is going to be 16-inch on center. But I've explored 24-inch on center and I rejected it for this reason, right? And so I actually have a decision database. It's almost like ADRs, right?
Yeah, you're describing ADRs.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a decision database where it's like, yes, I talked and explored this option and I rejected it for these reasons, right? And so then I'm not relitigating it with Claude in the conversation after conversation. And this is like really, really helpful. And so I have a database of over probably 100 specifications for this build that I can both review as a human, which is a lot of my time where I'm like researching the different things like, oh, what kind of screw should I use to do this specific job, right? And what's great about it is I can have a very focused conversation with Claude on just the one spec, so we can revise that spec. And then the benefit of using an LLM for this is that it can read the rest of the specs and it can detect inconsistencies. So it can say, well, you're using, this length of screw for this application. But here, in this other part of the spec, you're not using the same length of screw. And is that right? You know what I mean? Because sometimes you can consolidate some of that information. Or it'll say, well, you measured the wall height here as blah, 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 but over here it's this different height. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I got to fix that. So it is a lot of back and forth, and like there's still a lot of review happening, which is, it feels like very similar with like code and stuff, is like most of my time is spent reviewing. But we're getting into a place that is much more consistent with some of the specs and things like that I'm working on.
Yeah, I think the thing that's really important that I think you highlighted is to spend time thinking about it.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Like, I think that is the bottleneck, is actually discerning the output. Because it will give you ideas, potentially, but the thing is, you have no idea if they're good.
That's right. Yep. And it won't actively encourage good ideas either. Like you got to prompt it to rubber duck, or you have to prompt it to do an adversarial review. And I'll give you a good example of this. This entire time that I've been working on this plan for this garden room has been using a specific like ceiling height. And so because it's a shed roof where one side is higher than the other and it's just a single slant, it's a very simple roof. But the problem is that when you go to look at the materials that you need to like do the wall sheathing, if you have a tall ceiling, you need to use multiple sheets, right, to sheathe the wall. And that implies that you have to do what's called seaming, like you have to put tape on the seams to protect it and things like that. So there's a lot of extra work, and you got to put blocking behind that so that you have something to screw into. And so this whole time I've been operating with the ceiling height or whatever. And so yesterday I was like, hey, Claude, let's do a hypothetical. If I want to use a single sheet, if I want to optimize the cuts of my sheets so that I don't have horizontal seams, is there anything I could do to this build to make it simpler? And sure enough, it's like, well, if you subtract 5.5 inches from all sides, you will be able to do single sheets for everything. And it was right. I had not considered that, right? And it would not have suggested that had I not told it to consider that option, right? And so I've been working back and forth with it, just reviewing to make sure that it's right. And it is. So I think that I am going to adopt that, because what's the difference between a 9-foot ceiling and an 8-foot and like 5.5 inch ceiling? You know what I mean? So based on the sizes of the sheet goods, you can optimize your build so that you're not doing extra work. And so that just removes a whole bunch of steps from like the exterior wall sheathing process, right? And this is something that is just like you think of later, like as you're looking through stuff. But yeah, I think that was like a good example of like how Claude can help with stuff, with like thought experiments, right? And then you can go through and verify the thing. So like I've marked a decision record, but I've marked it as exploring, as because I have to remodel it in the software. I got to make sure that the window heights and everything still all work if I subtract 5.5 inches. So yeah, but that's like one example.
I might have talked about this on the show earlier, but there's a really good blog post from Mario Zechner, who is the author of the Pi agent harness. But they have a blog post called Slow the F Down. And it's kind of talking about this exact thing. And like everything is broken, and why we actually need to spend time thinking about what we're doing. Companies claiming that, this is quoting their article, companies claiming 100% of their product code is written by AI consistently put out the worst garbage you can imagine. They say, not pointing fingers, but memory leaks in the gigabytes, UI glitches, broken features, crashes are not the seal of quality they think it is. It's definitely not good advertising for the fever dream of having agents do all the work for you. No. And I think that's a really salient point here. I think it's very tempting to offload all of your work. And then I have to just say, what is it you do here exactly?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Slow the F down.
Slow the F down.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to TypeScript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at kamranigas.com and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.